Hello, everyone. YouTube, Instagram, podcast, wherever you're listening from. I want to say thank you. Today is going to be amazing. There's going to be Father's Day this Sunday in Australia, and it's interesting where I am in the world. It's different everywhere, which is great. Hey, listen, I'm celebrating Father's Days everywhere from the Mediterranean, but I have a lot of obviously good friends and mates and men in my program that are based in Australia. So I thought I'd do something to help men. Traditionally over the years, I've found it to be a painful time for some men, and particularly the way the world is with, we've got men going into new seasons. For example, they've got blended families. We're certain parts, depending on where you live, what city, what country you live in, it's between 40 and 50% divorce rate. There's so many relationships that are outside of marriage. So there can be a lot of complications. So today I'm gonna endeavor to cover as many situations as I can. There's a lot of men. I remember having my first Father's Day, and you don't know what to expect. So it's going to be a bit of preparation for first-time dads, okay? There's going to be we're going to talk about just, I suppose, dads who live with their kids in the family home, but maybe a bit tired, a bit stressed. So we're going to be able to prep for that. Blended families, as I said, and maybe even a little touch on, dads going through their first Father's Day with the family dynamics change. So it's like I've got 10 tips, but as I'm going, I'm adding more tips as I go. Obviously, over the years, there's more and more situations, okay, that I hear about, that I experience. Obviously, with my own kids, having 7 kids, aged between at the moment 10 and 27. It's another season that me and my wife are going through. So anyway, I'm going to do my best. So I think and this is what I'll say, the biggest thing when it comes to Father's Day is to actually have a plan. Actually have a plan, okay? And I've been guilty of it over the years. I've kind of said, family said, so what do you want to do? I said, well, I don't know. I'm tired, but you've got to have a plan, not just for you men, but for your family, so that ensure that they have a great day. So depending on your situation, for me, it's always about, and I endeavor to relax and not do this so much in my own free time, but have that structure, that discipline, that accountability around, every day. So I have to actually plan to rest. I honestly do. So gentlemen, the first thing, tip 1, particularly if you're taking notes, this will be good. Not everything will apply to you, but I tell you something, you may hear something today that may help somebody else. You may be able to be, that support for somebody else and give them a tip from what we talk about today. So the first thing is have a plan, okay? So, and maybe if your wife or your kids say, what do you want to do? Actually think about it and tell them what you want. Quite often I've heard in the past, say, they didn't do this or they didn't do that, or it was a rubbish day, or, well, did you tell them what you wanted? And turns out they never told them what they wanted. Nobody's a mind reader, so actually have a plan. And I think for a lot of times, particularly wives, women love decisive men. What they actually hate is men that just are indecisive, no decision, struggle to make a decision. Just say what you want. Have a plan. I want to be here at this time. I want to do this. I want to do that. Hey, maybe you say, hey, listen, make me a great breakfast, and I'm going to lay around. I'm going to lay in the backyard. Whatever you want, whatever you want. And I think, and that's one, really have a plan, whatever it is. Take a walk, fishing, whatever you want to do, but just communicate that. Okay. So I think the second thing is keep it simple. Really keep it simple. And when I say it, because everyone's at a different stage. Okay. Some men will endeavour and to just try and do everything on the day, particularly if you've got multiple families, you only get the kids a certain time. You try and cram too much in. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Well, I've said it many times. Maybe you've heard me say it before. Children spell love TIME with your time and your attention. I would add to that. So keep it simple. It doesn't take money. This is something I was talking with a group of men the other day that are in our program and in our mentorship. And somebody said something that reminded me of something that I would do back home. Okay, in front of my house, I've got there's probably about an acre and a half in front of my house. Okay, massive green, it slopes down. Quite often, what I would do, particularly when the grass is freshly cut, I would love it. I would lay on the grass on my back and just purely look at the clouds. And quite often when I would do that, what would happen is the dog would turn up, the horse would turn up, some kids would turn up, maybe even my wife would all be laying starfish on her back looking at the clouds. Like I actually think that, like I'm talking about it now, we're creating memorable moments. We've got to keep it simple, gentlemen. I think that's what's best. Remember time, we're creating moments. So, that's a tip for somebody, particularly if you don't, because I don't even think it's about going to a theme park or anything like that's a nightmare for me, to be honest. I don't know, just because I've done it so many times with 7 children, it kills me. So, and for someone's going to write this down, I reckon, the day before, man, and this is for everyone, have a rest. Actually have a rest the day before, the night before, go to bed early. Last thing you want to do is be tired and short with people and angry, all right? You're going to have no matter what your situation is, you're going to have a better day if you're rested, all right? I don't know who that's for, because we can be too busy men. Am I right or not? Leave in the comments if you've been too busy. You need to have a rest before the day, okay? So we're going to keep it simple. It doesn't take money. Plan out a walk to the park, okay? A walk to a creek. Maybe it's go for a drive somewhere where you haven't been before, okay? And in saying that, this is 3, because this is for a lot of men too. Don't over plan it. Allow time. If you're going to do an activity, like I said, a drive, a park, if it's going to take you 30 minutes to get there, plan an hour and a half. You can stop, look at a view, etc. Don't over plan it. Even the other day we were on a call and we were talking about the last Become a Better Man challenge, and one of the men was in on the Zoom the week after in our mentorship, and I said to him, what was the best bit? And the best bit for him for the 5 days was the thing that was not planned. I was doing events for a long time. Live events, I would always just make sure that we wouldn't overplan, like 80%, plan 80, allow 20% for the magic to happen, for those special moments, those things that are, spontaneous. You can just, hey, let's go here, let's do that. So that's what I would do, gentlemen. Do not over plan it. Plan to some do nothing time almost, But I think too, really, what I like to do, particularly a lot of single men, maybe you've got your kids all day. What I would do, and I've done this past years, whereas I research a couple of jokes. All right, I'm not a real joker. I like to laugh. I love to laugh, right? But to research and plan jokes, with AI, we can get the best dad jokes ever. Do you know what I mean? That could be something to do when you're resting on Saturday. Okay, that might be something. But I would also do. I always like, particularly these kind of days, these kind of occasions, is to remember stories that my dad told me about his dad, about his grandfather, and share stories about when I was a boy with my dad. Because what that does, and we'll talk, there's another tip later, but it really creates some intimacy with your kids, some talk around some things that are close to your heart. So, and that always gives I believe that always gives the kids permission to ask questions about Poppy, about, you know what I mean, about when I was a boy, that type of thing. So gentlemen, what I'm saying is we need to plan that. We need to plan a story or two. I think, it's always fun, and the kids always love it as well. But sometimes I've told the story over and over again, but you know what? They actually love it. Well, we always end up laughing, and they always ask more questions. And probably as the older kids get older, okay, they think of other questions to ask. So, and they can see the DNA that's in them. So gentlemen, so it's about, that's how I believe we really create memories. And this is number 4. I think this is a good one. Get your kids involved, particularly no matter what age they are, if they can participate in making you something or even cooking you something. If they can have, it's always when I think, we want to do is teach our children actually how to think of others. So if kids start making things and preparing things for Father's Day, it actually makes them feel good. They feel a part of it, like they've contributed. So I think that is a great tip. But what it does, it actually teaches them to take on a responsibility. Never waste a day, okay, to build to build kids' self-worth and self-esteem. And one of the best ways, I believe, is to give them a responsibility. And of course, you can teach them something as they're taking on that responsibility. So, all right. So it's not, I don't think it's that hard of work being a Gavin Top child. May sound like it, but hey, we have some fun while we're doing it. So maybe a couple of them might comment. I don't know. And this is what I think. It's easy, and this is number 5. And it's like, celebrate your achievements as a dad. I think most of us, if you're anything like me, you've made some mistakes. You've yelled at kids. You've been stressed out. You've missed moments. You've done the wrong thing. So we can I think we're quite good at reminding ourselves of our shortcomings, of our failings. But man, this is the day to celebrate yourself. And I don't mean hey, give yourself a pat on the back, man. You're still in the game. And I mean, even the fact that you may be a single dad, or maybe, and I want to talk about it towards the end, men that are not going to, and some tips for men that maybe aren't going to get the opportunity to see their children. Or maybe I know some men don't even know where their kids are, okay? So I'm going to give you that at the end. So hang in there. But even what we can do, and I'm going to have some tips around that, but I'll do it now. One of the things that I believe that's worked for a lot of men that have been astray from their kids is to, and I mean, it can be a painful day, but this works, okay? This is medicine. Who can you help? Be a father. Like, how can you help another dad have a great day? He may be a single dad. He may have all the weight on his back. Partner with him and help him. It will help you doing good things for other men. Other men's children, be a part of their day. It's a lot when you're doing it on your own. Okay, it's a lot. So if we can help another man, we might be in a tremendous amount of pain for the day not seeing our kids. But if we can be a part of another family, they say it takes a tribe, a village, a community to raise children. Well, this is what we're talking about, gentlemen. Be a part of somebody else's Father's Day. And particularly if you're a dad and you know somebody who's doing it tough, who's maybe on their own, bring them in. This is your responsibility, men, to actually help other men. This is how you can do this. Is opportunities are everywhere, gentlemen. So where am I up to here? So celebrate yourself, celebrate being a dad. Quite often, my family home back home, and the kids are getting a bit older now. They're kind of maybe a bit over it. I don't get the response that I used to, but my driveway's like, quite a long driveway, up the paddock, and I would hang my head out the window yelling out, "Dad's home! The best dad in the world is home!" And of course the first 25 times is funny. But maybe the first 5 times. But do you know what? It would create an atmosphere. And maybe subconsciously I was celebrating being a dad. But man, we've got to have some fun on this journey. We can't, the amount of men, and I'm guilty of it, I've been guilty of it, taking things way too serious, man. Let's celebrate being a dad. Celebrate. We got to have children, or even I know there's quite a few men gone through our different programs over time that have never had kids, couldn't have kids, or whatever. A lot of those men, I think, are fathering more once they get the concept of fathering. They are fathering so many other men, or just other people and other daughters, other men's children. Remember, we're a community here. If we participate on it, if we do the lone wolf, it will be a painful day. So that's for somebody. So so celebrate yourself, gentlemen. Pull other men in. So what do we got? Hey, there we go. I'm amalgamating too. Number 6 is to invite other men into your family. Don't be on your own. Make sure nobody else is on their own. Invite, even if it's just for a coffee, even if you hook up with a couple of men that are not seeing their kids, or actually they've got their kids, and you've got to do something together, gentlemen. It doesn't have to. It can be for an hour or two. It doesn't have to be, forever. But let's support others. Show our children the power of a community. That's for me. That's what I want to be doing. I want to be showing my kids that we're not on our own. You just reach out and people are there. So that's what I love to do. But the other thing I want to really emphasize, particularly if it's your first time as a dad, and your family situation has changed. Okay, because I remember this story. Okay, this guy doing one of my programs, and I said, "How was your Father's Day?" He goes, he lost the plot. Okay, I said, "Well, what happened?" And what he did, he actually went to pick up his children from his ex-partner's house, and when he knocked at the door, there was another bloke answered the door. Okay. And the kids were like, this other bloke, he never knew of this bloke. He never knew of this his ex-partner had a new boyfriend. So it was, and then this bloke's cuddling his kid. He didn't know, he lost the plot. Okay, so he actually, he ruined his day, he ruined his kid's day, so what I would suggest is if you've got an ex-partner, you want to say, are there any surprises? Have a plan with them. Make sure they've got a plan. No, don't allow any surprises like that, okay? And I would say equally for men, it's not the best day to introduce a new partner to your children, okay? Because I know of men that have done that, and it's just been totally the wrong timing. Timing has been so, it was, kids are in tears. I remember, of men telling me these stories. So gentlemen, we can actually, have a good preparation. If your family dynamics have changed, communicate with your ex-partner. You don't want any surprises. Don't introduce any new partners on this day. Don't wreck the day, gentlemen, is what I'm saying. Comes back to that first tip. Have a plan. So I'm hoping. A lot of men don't think about that. So now you will. So I would say, in 7, okay, tip 7, I would say, particularly if your family dynamics have changed, particularly if you've got maybe a blended family now, and it could be the first, second, or third Father's Day. I would say prep them even the day before or whenever. Today, whenever. We're going to create some new traditions, and particularly if the children are older, if you've got a blended family with teenage kids, talk to them about, let's create. What would you like to create? Get them involved in the decision making. Remember that other tip about taking on responsibilities. Get them involved. Let's create some new traditions, or let's create something new. What sort of a Father's Day could we all create together? That will build some bridges, right, and maybe take down some walls, okay? Particularly if you're navigating fathering somebody else's children. Maybe there's some conversation you can have about what can you do as a stepdad or as a male role model coming into your mum's family with your, communication again, gentlemen. Sometimes it's just ask some questions and then close your mouth and let them talk. So about creating new traditions, okay? I think that's going to be a good one for, and even like men that maybe they're like myself, kids are adults now. Okay, I've got kids in different countries now. Shifted out of home, etc. What's some new traditions that we can create? So, gentlemen, I hope you're getting some value out of this. And this is number 8. This is gold. It's almost like this new word we've heard over the last, decade. Probably since longer, since mobile phones, so probably since the Apple phone. Whereas being present, being present. And my suggestion would be, is to make sure, because we've all maybe seen it, or even some of us have done it, where you're at a restaurant or you're having a meal or something, and the kids are on devices, the parents are on devices. You're there, but you're not really there. Like your mind is in elsewhere. So gentlemen, I would maybe even the start of the day or the day before prepping. Remember, this is preparation for Father's Day. Prepping for let's have some no mobile phone, no device time. Like have some time where whether you plan to go fishing or go for a walk or do something together. Or maybe it's just, hey, we're going to sit there and have lunch and have a conversation like those other tips. Prep with some jokes. Prep with some stories maybe about your dad, about his dad. Like prep with some stories about when you were a boy and some great things that your parents did. You're like, maybe that's the time where you actually are present and everyone's present and you go first. You put your phone away. Let's put all the phones away. And let's have a great conversation. Be present. That's the tip, gentlemen. That's the tip of 8. And maybe, because a lot of I'm a prayer. Okay, I pray. So I always like to start a meal with a prayer, particularly around, moments like this. I mean, any moment really. I get an opportunity to pray and pray for my kids. Ask them because what it is, it's about emotional connection. When we talk about being present, I think most people talk about being present. They want emotional connection. So prayer is one way of doing that. Particularly you guys who are prayers, ask your kids, what do you need prayer? What is there anything that you need help with that we need to pray about? And I mean, if you're not a prayer, okay, that's fine. What you could do is maybe go around the table and say, what are you grateful for? Because when people start going around, hey, I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for that, and I'm great, what it does, it actually builds, you all of a sudden you're putting your heart on the table. You're connecting in an emotional connection, and that's what kids want. I think that's what women want. That's what people want. Okay, so that could be a good one for somebody, I'm sure, if not everyone. So hey, if you're liking what I'm saying here, leave a comment and let us know. All right, because the more you get involved in what I'm talking about, the more you're going to remember. If you're taking notes, you're going to be able to do. Even leave me a comment and tell me what you're going to implement, because obviously all these things are not for everyone, but even if you can just pull 1 or 2 or 3 things out of these dozen things, could you set yourself up for a great Father's Day? So, all right, here we go. And particularly when we talk about, like I was talking about earlier in this, about it can be a painful day for some people. So I would say, because I've found out over the years, my kids have actually held resentments against me. Okay, it might sound strange. I mean, it was strange to me at the time. I'm having fun here, but do you know what? I've asked for forgiveness. I've asked for forgiveness. There's been times I've done the wrong thing. Okay, my dad has done the wrong thing at times. Maybe he might disagree. I don't know. but when I tell stories about my dad to my kids and how much I love him and what he did for me and all the moments that he changed my life. My dad's the best. Okay, so I've had to forgive my dad, not for him, but for me, So I've had to ask my kids to forgive me, and it's probably going to happen again and again. But I think when we pray or we get that gratitude, it creates that emotional time. Like I would say, maybe to all the men here, what do you need to let go of? What maybe there's a resentment or maybe something unresolved, and maybe just for the day, just practice on the day. Hey, listen, I'm just going to let it go. Maybe men, you've had your wives or your ex-wives have caused whatever. Maybe you need to forgive them and let them know, hey, you're forgiven. I'll let I'm not holding nothing against you. Mate, it can be, I said this can be a painful day. It can be a very healing day as well for some men. But obviously we've got to be intentional. And that's what this having a plan and preparation, like I said, this is not everything I talk about is for everyone, but maybe 1 or 2 things. It may help you. So, hey, man, and I mean, like it gets on at 10, all right? We have to model Father's Day. We must lead the way. If your wife or somebody, so your kids say, what do you want to do? Have a plan to tell them, this is what I'd love. This is what I'd love to do. Give some direction. We talk about the 10 things is about modeling being a dad, modeling fathering. We do that by actually fathering other people's children, by being an example, and it could be giving gifts, it could be making things, it could be showing them how to let negative stuff go. Being a dad's the best, I reckon. I love being a dad, but I tell you what, and I mean, every dad will agree with me, I believe, it's not easy. It's not, and sometimes you learn through making mistakes, but man, I think one of the things that I read years ago, and I've shared it with a lot of men over the years, and I think the best thing we can do for our children is to show our children, our sons and our daughters, actually how to love by loving their mother unconditionally. My wife's made mistakes. She's done this and done that and hadn't done this and have done. Hey, but so have I. And that's relationship. That's going the distance. Being a fast forgiver. So when we can let that stuff go and show, even if you're divorced, you're going to be connected to that woman for all your life, okay, through your children, but more than that even. So we want to, gentlemen, show our kids how to love unconditionally. I think if we can do that by loving their mums, despite of what they did or didn't do, man, I believe that's what a real man does. That takes courage to do that. So, and I mean, hey, Some of us just have to grow up. As man, I'm being real here, and I've got a heap of other stuff on YouTube around that. Okay, and the transition, particularly with our 5-day challenge, I've really been in putting that in that how we transition for the 6 stages on the development of the masculine journey. And if we skip a stage, and sometimes men do that, skip 3 stages out of the 6, it's going to be a hard march, man. So all right, so go through some other stuff if you're on YouTube, if you're struggling with letting stuff go. So, gentlemen, couple more things. I mean, it's a long one, but hey, if you want to have the best Father's Day, do the work, gentlemen. So, particularly this is for men who are maybe not going to be able to see their kids, because I actually know dads that don't even know where their kids are. Okay, and this is hard, okay? But in saying that, there's things we can do. Obviously, we can join in with other families and just celebrate other dads, But I mean, what this would be a suggestion. Maybe it's for all dads as well. Even if you only get to see your kids, you don't get to see your kids on Father's Day. It's the day after or whatever. What I would do, what I would suggest, what I know that actually works, even if you don't know where your kids are, write a letter on Father's Day to them, even if you don't have an address to post it, okay? Because if you can write a letter on how much you love them, how you feel about them, the things you want to share with them, if you can write pour everything out into a letter, seal the letter, and maybe one day, I believe one day, maybe in 10 years, and whenever they're adults or whatever, you'll be able to give them that letter. And what it'll do, it'll actually show them that you love them the entire time. You love a child forever, whether you see them or not. So that might be a great healing process, that in whenever it is you see them, that they look back and all those times that you didn't see them, you were thinking of them. You were thinking about something you could share with them, something you could teach them, how much you love them. I'm telling you, man, it could be the best, a great healing thing for you. But I tell you, at the appropriate time, I believe your child will read it. Okay, Dad's loved me forever, all those times. And, if you're a prayer, it's the time to pray. And maybe that's how you begin the letter, by just praying and write out what you're praying. So, gentlemen, we're getting deep there, but this is we're talking about children's lives here. We're talking about your life. So, and this is for coming to the end here, but there's a scripture in Ephesians 6, and it talks about honoring your parents, honoring your father and your mother, okay? And I'm going to tell you why it says that, okay? Because when I talked about, what was it, tip 3 or 4 or whatever, about gathering stories from your parents and their parents and your grandparents, you're able to impart to your children, because that's what this is, I believe. I take this Father's Day as an impartation of love. Almost like a legacy kind of part. We impart stories. We impart how we feel, how much we love them. We impart moments to them. So it's not just a great day for me. It's a great day for anyone who comes near me. So it says in Ephesians 6, right? It says, honor your parents so that you live a long life, is what it says. You live a long life, and I think a part of that is actually by honoring your parents. Okay, it kind of, obviously it helps them, it makes them feel amazing, but it ensures that you live a long life. It says that in Ephesians 6. Check it out, gentlemen. I mean, man, I think it's it actually, I've got it written here. It's so that hang on, it says I'm getting there, gentlemen. Honor your parents to ensure that it actually says to ensure that things will go well with you. Honor your parents to ensure that things will go well with you and you will live a long life. So, man, if we can show our children how to honor how we honor our parents, and they will honor us, and that it will ensure that things will go well with them. So gentlemen, in finishing up, I mean, it's been a long one. In finishing up, I would say, look out for others. When you can show your children to extend your hand and your heart, and maybe provide a meal or just some time to help another dad or another family, particularly this could be a big painful day for a lot of single mums out there. We can actually, support a single mum. We can support a single dad. We can, remember, it's a community, a tribe, a village that grows a young person. So, gentlemen, have a great day. Maybe share this with somebody who you know will benefit. Like I said, it's not for everything I talk about is not for everyone, but if you can grab one or two things, I'm sure it'll make a difference. So, hey, listen, over and out. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you loved about it.